Hello guys, welcome back to this tutorial. So this is the second tutorial in our introduction to APIs with Flask series. So in this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and actually begin to code our API. So in the last tutorial, we created the virtual environment, installed the libraries, and then we went over what it is that we're going to be building. So in this tutorial, we begin to code. So I'm just going to create a folder here. Let me just open code. I'm just going to type in code, VS Code, or whatever editor you're using. So open up that editor, or you can use any editor of your choice. Okay, I'm going to be using VS Code, and I'll just open it up. So let's just wait for it to load. So now that it has loaded, I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to call it creating a folder. I'm going to create in a folder, and I'm going to call it application. So I'm going to create a folder in here called application. I'm going to press enter. Instead of application, I'm going to create a folder called app.py. okay, that's going to be our API. So this we're going to be typing in our Python code. So let's get started. So I'm going to go ahead and actually import the basic stuff. So I'm going to say import, let's say this is from Flask. You're going to be importing from Flask, going to be importing Flask. You're going to be importing requests. You're going to be importing JSONify. I think it's JSONify, just like that. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and create our basic Flask application. And if you don't know, you're not familiar with Flask, I have a simple introduction to Flask tutorial on my channel, so you can go and check that out if you are not familiar with the basics of Flask. So basically, we're just creating an instance of the Flask class, and then you're going to go in here, and then you're going to say dunder name equals to string dunder. This is going to be main dunder, and then I'm going to say app.run, and I'm going to say debug is going to be true, so you can be able to debug our application. So now that we have that there, this is just a simple it's going to create a simple API that returns a hello world for now. Okay, so I'm going to say app.route, and I'm going to type in here just /. I'm going to call it to do list, and then I'm going to come down and I'm going to say def to do. This is going to be a function, and I'm simply going to be return. I'm going to say JSONify, and I'm going to return a dictionary. So I'm going to say message. Sorry, this is going to be message, and our message is simply going to be hello world from let's call it API. Hello world, yeah, let's make it hello world from API. Okay, so that's all we're going to do. So now that we have done that, we can go ahead and simply run our application. So I'm going to in the terminal, and then I'm going to navigate to where my Python is, and I'm going to type in Python 3 and then app.run. So if you're using a text editor, you can just run your application like the way you normally do. You can press also this button to run it, but I just prefer to run it in the terminal, so that's just my way. Okay, so run the application the way you usually run your normal Python programs, and then you can create that. So now you can see it has started the development server at localhost at port 5000. So I'm going to go into our application here, which is just going to be Postman, and from Postman I can be able to make requests. Okay, so from Postman I can go ahead and actually create a new collection. This collection we're going to use it for I'm going to call it so this is going to be Flask tutorial, and I'm going to press enter. So I'm going to go to Flask tutorial, and then in here I'm going to add a request, and I'm going to call this get request. Okay, so I'm going to call that get, and I'm going to close all these other requests. I'm going to save them, close all of these other ones. I also using them for a previous, don't get confused. So yeah, so now I have only let me just see, I'm going to save this as well, and I'm going to go to get. So in here I'm just going to copy the URL that is here. I'm going to copy, and I'm going to come to our Postman, and I'm going to paste it here, and I'm going to type in to do. So to do is the route that we have passed in here. So if you call it to do list, we call it actually to do list. So this is what you're going to be typing in after the /. So this is going to be to do list, just like that. And I'm going to press this get request, and you can see we get back the message hello world from API. So that's just a basic example of an API. So what we have right now is just an API in basic terms. So you can deploy this on the internet, and then anyone can be able to access it and get back the message hello world. But it's not what we want to do, right? We want to build a whole to-do list using Flask. So let's just remove this part. So now we have instantiated our class, right? Our object. So let's go ahead and actually create the other configuration. So we're going to create a database, and then from the database you're going to be able to make a store in our data. Okay, so I'm just going to go to app, which is going to be app.config, and this you're going to say this is just going to be SQL all uppercase. So before I do that, let me go ahead. Actually, I forgot to import this stuff, so I'm going to say this is going to be from Flask -SQL, this is _SQLAlchemy import this is going to be, sorry, this is going to be SQL this is uppercase SQL as Flask SQLAlchemy. So this is going to be SQLAlchemy, just like that. And also going to be importing it's going to be from Flask _Marshmallow import Marshmallow, just like that. And also going to be importing yeah, I think these are the basic things that we need from now. So let's just go ahead and actually create our route. So this is going to be let me keep some comments here. So instantiate Flask app, just like that. And then in here I'm going to say set configs. So we're going to say Flask SQL this is going to be Alchemy database URI. This is just going to be a string. So this is going to be SQLite colon 3/, and then you're going to call it data this is going to be database.db. okay, so SQLite colon 3/, database.db. so this is just going to be a folder, a file, because an SQL you're going to be using SQLAlchemy, which is just a file based database. So it's going to create a file here, and that file is going to be our database. You're simply going to tell that file to be called database.db. so that's what going to be our name of our file. So I'm also going to set something here, app.config, and I'm going to say SQLAlchemy is going to be SQLAlchemy _track _modifications, and you're going to set this to be false. So this is going to be set to false just to avoid some errors that you might probably get if you didn't set it to false. So this is going to be track. So let me just make sure I get the spelling right. So SQLAlchemy track modifications, and you're going to set that to false. So now that we have the configuration set up, let's go ahead and actually create our database. So to create our database, you're going to create instantiate db object. So we're going to instantiate the db object here. So we're going to say db equals to SQLAlchemy, and you're simply going to pass in app, just like that. So that's now that we have our db object instantiated. Let's go ahead and actually create our database. So just create database right here. So we're going to create a class. I'm going to call it to do lists, and I'm going to say db.model, just like that. And I'm going to create the stuff here. So I'm going to go id column. This used to be db.column. That's how we create columns in Flask. The Flask SQLAlchemy. So we're going to say db.column, and in parentheses we're going to say db.integer, since these are going to be integers. Okay, we're going to also make this to be our primary key. Primary _ key equals to true, just like that. And then you're also going to go to name, which is the name of our to do dot, so going to be db.column, and then you're going to let me say db.string. This is going to be a string, and you're going to make it to be, let's say 200, and then nullable is going to be false. We don't want to be empty, right? So, and then you're also going to go to description is going to be db.column, and then it's going to be db.string. Let's say the description is just 400, and then it's also nullable is going to be false. It can also not be empty. And then we can also go now, we can say the completed is going to be db.column again, db.column, and I'm going to say db. This is going to be boolean. This is going to be boolean, and then it's going to be nullable. You're going to also say nullable to be false. Nullable, this is going to be false, and then we're going to set a default. So default, because by default we want all our to-dos to be false, because you have not yet done it, you've just set it. And then we're going to say date underscore created. This is going to be db.column. So going to be db.date time. So we're going to say date time, and then you're going to say default. The default is just going to be datetime.datetime. So we need to import datetime here. So we're going to say from datetime, we're going to be importing date time. Okay, so we're going to say datetime.utc now. So we're going to say date.utc now, just like that. You're not going to call it, you're just going to say date.datetime, date equals to datetime.utc, I mean default equals to datetime.utc. Now you're going to create a dev underscore repr, just like that, and then you're simply going to be returning self.id, just like that, if in case you want to run this in the terminal, so you can be able to get back the ID. Okay, so I hope you're familiar with this. This is just we created a column, and the column is going to be of int type, and then it's going to be our primary key, we call it ID. Create another column called name, is going to be a string type, and it's going to be nullable, is going to be false, it cannot be null. Description is going to be of string type, and it can store 400 characters, and we're going to say the nullable is false, it can be false. And then the completed is going to be of boolean type, because it can be true or false. And then it's also nullable. Default is going to be false. And then they create date created, which is going to be date time, and then it's going to be default is going to be utc.date.now, datetime.utc. So now that we have that there, let's go and actually create our schema. So now to create a schema, so to create a schema, we define like will help us to take our objects and JSONify them. That's what the schema is going to do. And we can also control which fields we can expose by using on the schema. So just create to do. Just to this is to do list. It's going to be a schema. So we're going to schema. So we're going to create a class here. I'm going to call it to do list schema, just like that. And this is going to be MA. So we need to create an object of the marshmallow. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to say create marshmallow object. So I'm going to say MA equals to marshmallow, and you're going to pass in here the app, so it takes in app. So we have passed in the app, so we're going to come marshmallow dot schema right there. So you can see marshmallow.schema, and this way we're going to be creating that. So we're going to create a meta class here. So we're going to call it meta, and you're going to say this is going to be fields, and then the fields are going to be a tuple, and then the fields are going to that you're going to be exposing. I'm going to expose the name field, the description. You're going to also be able to expose the excuse me, you're also going to be able to expose the completed. So we're going to paste that right here, and then we're also going to be able to expose the exposing the date created as well. So we're going to also expose that as well. So I'm going to save that, close this for now. So we can also create, so we're going to be exposing the name field, the description field, the completed date field, and then the date created field. Okay, so those are the fields that you're going to be exposing. So now that we have that, we can go ahead and actually create an instance of this. Okay, so we're going to create instance of schema. Okay, let's create an instance of our schemas. So we're going to call it to do list underscore schema, and this is going to be an object of to do list schema. And then you're going to say many. This is going to handle to returning one set many equals to false. Okay, this because we're going to create one for to do lists. And then let me just copy, type out the code, and I explain to you what I mean by that. Can be a bit confused. We're going to create to do list schema, and then it's going to have this specification, and also going to create another one to do lists a plural, right? So it has an S. So this is going to be used to serialize many whenever you have many objects from our DB object. Okay, so there's going to be from our to-do list object. So when you have many to-do list objects, you're going to be using this to JSONify it. When you have only one object from our to-do list, say we've selected only a single record, you're going to use this to-do list. But whenever you have many records, you're going to be using to-do lists underscore schema. Okay, that's why I've set many equals to true. So now that we have that setting there, we can go ahead and actually create our routes that can return for us the information that we need. So I'm going to call this create let's say create to do's route. So I'm going to create a route here. So to create a route, I just say ampersand and then add the add sign and then the app dot route. And then inside of this route, I'm going to specify the route that you're going to go. So I'm going to call it to do lists, and then I'm going to specify the method. So there are many methods that are HTTP methods. So this is basically HTTP method or HTTPS methods. So they can be get, post, delete, put, and stuff like that. So we're going to use in this case, you're going to be posting, right? So we're going to be using the post method. So the post method, what is basic? This should be a string, okay? So this is going to be post, and it's all uppercase. So as a post method, what the post does, whenever you're talking about HTTP method, whenever you talk about post, you're sending something to the server. That's why you're posting something to the server. That's why we're going to be using a post method, because this method is going to allow us, so this route is going to allow users to create to-do lists. So they're going to be sending something to the server, and the server is going to use that to create a to-do list on our database, right? So I'm going to call it add to do. You can call it anything you want. So I'm going to call it add to do. And any I'm simply going to say try. I'm going to have a try and accept block. So I'm going to say try. I'm going to get name. This will just be request dot JSON and request.json. So we're going to be setting a JSON file. Instead of that JSON file, we're going to be looking for the name field. Okay, and then here we're going to say, so we have all we need is the name and the description. These can be auto completed, right? So because they have default values, so we need the name and the description. So I'm going to copy this description and I'm going to paste it here. This is going to be equals to request, and then I'm going to pass request. This is request.json, and I'm going to pass in here this description. So I'm going to close this for now. So now you're going to have the name and the description. So now that you have the name and the description, you can go and actually create a new underscore to do, which is going to be an instance of our to-do list. You're going to pass in name equals to name, and you're going to pass in description equals to the description that you're going to get. So that's all we need to do. The rest will be figured out because they're default parameters, so they'll be figured in. So now that we have that, we can go and actually create it, come into our database. So we do db.session.add, and you're going to add new underscore to do. So this is just going to add it to our database. If you don't know about Flask SQLAlchemy, I said that, as I mentioned, I have a small introduction to Flask on my YouTube channel. You can check that tutorial out. So I'm going to also go db.session.commit. So this might be a bit strange. So you have db.session.add and you're going db.session.commit. So db.session.add is just telling the database we want to perform a change, while db.session.commit, the change is actually permanently written on the disk, right? So that's what it does. So now that you have done that, you're going to simply return. We're going to return to do list schema dot JSONify, and then you're going to pass in new to do. That's what we're going to do. So we're using to do list because it's just going to be one to do record, right? So if you could have many, we could use the one for S, but since we have one, I'm just going to say to do list underscore schema dot JSONify. You're going to JSONify this object right here, and you're going to return it to the user. Okay, that's all we're going to do. Then you're going to try accept, and you're going to accept exception as E, and then you're going to return. Is we're going to return JSONify. You're going to return a dictionary saying an error. So we're going to just say, you can say any error that you want here. So I'm just going to say invalid request just like that. So I'm going to return to the user invalid request. So that's what we're going to be doing. That's all we're going to do. So we're going to try getting the name, the description, create an instance of the to-do list with these specifications. We're going to add it to our DB, and then you're going to return to the user the JSON format of whatever he has created. Then if there's an exception, you're going to return the user an invalid error. In the future, I'll show you how to actually, we're going to write a route to deal with these exceptions. Okay, so now that we have that, that's all we need. So let's go and actually test it out. But before we test it out, we need to create create our database. So I'm going to go into my terminal, clear this, and I'm going to do ls, and I'm going to do Python. Open my Python terminal, Python interpreter. So I'm going to say from, I'm going to call it app import db. So I'm going to import db. So we got an error, so I typed in columns instead of columns. So I'm going to exit. So let me just go back to my VS Code to see where I made that error. So I typed in columns instead of column. So it's right here, so I have to remove that. So it's actually column, not columns. So I hope I didn't make any other errors. Okay, so I'm going to clear this, and then I'm going to type in Python 3, and then from app, I'm going to be importing db. So we have an attribute. So this is, oh my god, I made another error. So this is actually date time. I wrote data time. Okay, so I hope no more errors. Let's check it out. Okay, so now we have no error. So now that we have that, we're just going to type in db.create underscore all. So this is going to create our database for us, and you can see the database already created. So now if you go back to our project folder, you can see we have here a file. It didn't actually appear. So let's see why it didn't appear. SQLAlchemy /database.db. So it didn't appear. Let me just try to refresh it. It doesn't appear here. So why? SQLAlchemy 3// db.this. It doesn't create a database. db.drop underscore all, db.create underscore all. Yeah, it should be there. It doesn't appear, so I don't know why. Just try to refresh this. It doesn't appear. So SQLite 3: database.db. So I think I have probably made an error here. Okay, so let me just go back and check the on my GitHub page. So let me just check it out. So this is the application. I created the full application. Let me just go to application, and then I go to call it to do app.py. So this is actually going to be SQLite. Yeah, that database should be created. So I think I probably made an error here. So SQLAlchemy. Okay, I made an error. So you can see here that part is wrong. So SQLAlchemy Alchemy. So yeah, I think that's the route. So it's gonna be SQLAlchemy. There's only one L there, so I made a typo. So it's actually just SQLAlchemy and then the name of the route. So let me just go ahead and actually drop this db.drop underscore all. So sorry for that typo, and then db.create underscore all. So now that the database has been created, let's check it out if it's there. So you can see now it's still not created. So database URI still have that error. So let me just check it out. So SQLAlchemy database URI. So let me just copy this and then I paste it there for now. So I'm going to paste it here. So SQLAlchemy database URI, and then the specifications. Okay, so I'm going to exit out of this for the changes to take place. So clear the terminal, and then I'm going to go this is Python, so I'm going to type in Python 3, and then from app import db, and then db.create underscore all. So create that all the database. Make sure I check if the database is created, and here we have the database there. So I think I typed in double A here. That was my error, so guys, sorry for that. So now that we have the database created, we can go ahead and actually begin to code. So now that we have our database, I'm going to run this and I'm going to test it in our app. So I'm going to go Python 3, and then it's going to be app.py, and I'm going to run that. So it has started our development server running on this local host. Okay, so we're going to go to this route here called to-do list, and I'm going to make a post request to this route, and I'm simply going to be posting creating the content here. So I'm going to pass in the name, the description, and then make a post request. Okay, so I'm going to come here, and I'm going to come here, and I'm going to create a new request, and I'm going to call it post. So we create for that, open that post request. So we're going to copy the route from here, this route, copy it, paste it here, paste it here. This is going to be a post request. We're going to go into the header. You're going to say here, you're going to type in content, content type, and then this is going to be application JSON, just like that. And then you're going to go into the body, you're going to go click row, and then in you're going to type in our JSON. So I'm going to press this enter, and I'm going to say name. This you need to pass in the name, and I'm going to call it to do one, and I'm going to pass in a description. So description, and this description is going to be to do one description. So if you're coming from Python, this is just a dictionary, but in you make sure you use double quotes for all the strings. Okay, so I'm just going to make a post request to this route, make a post request, and then we can see we got back that there. So we got back request, and then everything has been created on this time, the description, and then the complete has been set to false. So this shows that our database, we have created our route, and our route is now running on our database. So now it's all up and running. So now what you're going to do now is just going to create a route that is going to return to us a specific part of the URL of the it's going to return to a specific to do. So we're going to return the same process. We're going to repeat the same process, get to do. So again, let's call it get to do's. So we're going to get to do's. We're going to return to us all our to do. So we're going to create a route saying app, then it's going to be app dot route, and inside of this route you're going to create bring this back here. This is going to be a string, and then it's going to be to do list, and then the method in here, methods, the method is going to be a list, and it is going to be a get method because you're going to get something from the server, right? So you're going to be getting all that to do. So the request is a method is a get method. If you're posting something to the server, it's going to be a post record. Post method, this is going to be a get method. Okay, so I'm going to say def get underscore to do's, and then you're going to just return the to do. So we're going to get every to do. So we're going to say to do's. This is going to be to do lists dot query. This is to query our database all. So we're just going to query for all the data, and you're going to now serialize. So I'm going to result underscore set. This is just going to be this is going to be to do list schema, or to do list schema. Now we're going to get many to do, so we're going to use the to do's underscore schema. Okay, to do's list schema. Then you're going to use a method called dump, and you're going to pass in here to do's, right? So we're going to pass in to do's, and then you're going to return JSONify of the result set. That's all you're going to do. So now if you go to this route called // and you make / to do list, and you make a get request, you're going to get back all our to do. So now let me just go back to Postman, and I'm going to create here in here another to do. I'm going to call it to do 2. I'm going to call it 2, and then I'm going to change the description to be 2, and I'm going to make that post request. Our server is not running, so I'm going to start the server again. I'll go back to Postman, and then run that again, so we get back that to do. So I'm going to go back to get, and I'm going to get make a get request, and you can see we got back all our to do's within a list. Okay, so now we have back all our to do. So that's how we can be able to do make the retrieve function. Now let's go ahead and actually write the function to get back only a specific to do. Okay, so we're going to call it route. This is going to be to do list, and then this is going to specify the method. So the method is going to be a get method as well. So we're going to say get method, but in here we need to specify to take in an ID. So we're going to / and then just like HTML, and then int, and I'm going to say ID. So what you're simply going to do, I'm going to say that we're going to get to do / by a certain number. Now this number is going to be ID, and it's going to be dynamic. That's why you're going to using this syntax. So that's why we're going to get that dynamic number, and then you're going to use that dynamic number to query our database to get the value and then return it to the user. So we're going to say def get underscore to do, just a to do. You're going to take in ID that you're going to that you have passed in here, the ID, and you're going to get to get the data from our database. So what we're simply going to do, we're going to say to do equals to sorry, sure I accidentally, so this is to do list dot query, so there's going to be a query dot get underscore or underscore f404. So what this is going to do is that it's going to get the data. If it's going to use the get method is used to get 404 will get the data. If it doesn't find it with that specific ID, it's going to return a 404 error. So whenever a person passes maybe our query, our list ends at, our records end at 4, and a person types in an ID of 5, it's going to try to get it. If it doesn't find the record with an ID of 5, it's going to return a 404. That's what it does. So you have to do is going to return it to the user. You're going to return, this is to do list schema, to do list schema dot JSONify. You're going to pass in to do. That's all you're going to do, because it's just a simple to do. So we're going to go to our routes, go to get, go to Postman, make sure our server is running. Your server stops whenever you are typing and you make an error, a syntactical error. The server will stop, so I need to always start it again. So I'm going to go to get, and I'm going to say I'm going to get an post an ID of 1. I'm going to make that request. Okay, so we got back the post with an ID of 1. Now the ID is not being returned, so let's just go back to our code. And then we need that ID, especially when we're doing the front end like React and stuff like that. So we need that ID. So I'm going to put that ID here. So ID, make sure I get that. So I'm going back to start my server again, and then go make that request again. So I'm going to get that request, and you can see we have the ID of 1. So if I type in here 2, it's going to return to me a to-do list with an ID of 2. If I type in here a 3, you're going to get a 404 not found. So you get back a 404 not found. So that's great. So now our get functions are working. Now let's go ahead to create one for updating. So to update, you're going to use a very similar syntax. So this is just update to do. So it's going to use the same syntax. You're going to create a route. So app.route, and you're going to call it sorry, here, and you're going to call it first, this is to do lists, and you're going to call it give it taking the field that you want to update. And then because you can't update all records, you can update this, you can update all record, but you want to give you access to update a specific record at a time, right? So we can say methods, and then this is gonna be this method is gonna be put method. Whenever making an update, we use a put method. So I'm going to say def, and then you're going to say update underscore to do, and then you're going to pass in that ID, and then you're simply going to get that ID. So you're going to say get that ID if it exists. So you're going to say to do this is going to be to do equals to, this is going to be to do list dot query dot get 044. So we're going to get 044. You're going to convert that ID into an integer just in case, and then you're going to pass in here the ID. And then if you get that to do, now you're going to get the values that the user will be able to update. So you can be able to update you can be able to update a lot of things about the data, right? So I'm going to copy this, and then bring it back here. So to update, you can be able to update the you can be able to update the name of the to do, the description. You can also give it the ability to update the completed, right? Completed, but you will not be able to update the date. But you can create that functionality to update the date, but in this tutorial I'm not going to do that. I just want the date to be original date. Okay, so this is gonna be completed. So that's all I'm going to do. So I'm going to get the name, the completed. You will also not be able to update the IDs. It might conflict with data, already existing data in our database. You can say to do dot name. So we're going to be updating it. Is name, and then to the current name, to the new name that we got, and then to do dot description is going to be the new description that is provided. And then so now that you have added the description and the name, you can work at dp.session that completed, and you're going to add in the completed. This is going to be completed just like that. And then you can now do dp.session dot .commit. We're just going to commit it to our database, since we don't need to actually add it. It already exists, so we're just going to do db.session.commit to write those updates. Then you're going to return to the user the new updated to-do list. So I'm going to say to-do list schema. This is just going to just be a single one, so we're going to do it JSONify. You're going to JSONify to do. That's all. So we're going to return to the user that. So let's try to run this to test out this functionality. So I'm going to go ahead and start my development server. I got an error, Flask router. So I type in router. Well, I'm not in React here, so I'm just going to save that, reload this, and then go back to the Postman in update. So we don't have updates, so let me just create another file that we'll be using to test our updates. I'm going to call it updates, and then I'm going to open up updates. I'm going to copy the request from here, and I'm going to be pasting it here, and this is going to be to do / and you're going to say you want to update the first post, and then you're going to be sending a put request. Okay, so a put request. So I'm going to get the first post, and then I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste and update it there. So I'm going to copy it, move it to update in the header. This is just going to be of content type. This is going to be application, going to be JSON. I'm going to the body, and I'm going to copy row, and then I'm going to paste that right there. So the same, we're going to be updating. I'm going to say updated. This is going to be updated. As well, and then you're going to be providing the ID. You're going to be providing the name. You're going to pass in the name, the description, the date created is not. You're going to say this is going to be true, so we completed it. So that's going to be done, and you're going to put a semicolon, a comma, and then I'm going to make that request to our server, and then we got back our data, and you can see that it has been updated. So now if I go back to get this again, make this request, now it will be changed to true, and you can see now all of the data has been updated. So now our update functionality also works. So the only that we are left it is the delete functionality, and let's go ahead and actually run that delete functionality. So I'm going to say delete to do. So delete to do is just going to follow the same syntax as this one. So we can just go and copy this part out, and then I'll modify it. So paste it here, and then this is going to be to do, and then it's going to be a delete method. So this is going to be delete all uppercases. This is blocking my view. So delete all uppercases, and this is going to be just delete to do. You're going to get the to do, and then you're going to simply say db.session.delete. I'm going to say in delete to do, and then I'm going to .commit. That's all, and I'm going to return. JSONify. This is going to be just saying success. So this is going to be to do deleted, full stop. So that's how our delete functionality is. So if you make a request with an ID, it's just going to delete it, and then it's going to return to us this information that it has been deleted. So I'm going to start our development service again, and it's running. So I'm going to go to Postman. I'm going to create another request, and I'm going to call it deletes, and then I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to open delete, paste this here, and I'm going to delete the ID of 1. So I'm going to go to the method is delete, and then I'm going to post this. This is going to turn to me successfully deleted, and if I go back to get, then I didn't specify the ID to get. This is just going to return to me just one record with an ID of 2. This is the only one left in the list. We have a list of dictionaries, and the only dictionary that we have is a 1, so with an ID of 2. Since we have just for ID of 1. So that's all we are going to cover in this tutorial. So we have just learned how to perform the CRUD functionality on our API. So in the next tutorial, we're going to go ahead and actually deal with the errors, the error routes, and then we'll take it from there. So guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this tutorial so far, kindly give me this video a like, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos like this. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Keep safe.